This week, we expose Australia's best-kept four-drive secret. We're climbing to new heights and struggling through the lows.
This is not the natural environment for the Iveco to be in. And then telling a camper trailer, that's making life a bit hard for yourself.
Alrighty, here we go.
I think we all looked at it and said, that's just not drivable.
Well, it could only be described as something you should not drive up. And I employed my time-old strategy.
You right there? Because I'm...
Flick the lockers on and just plant it.
This week, we're just 2 hours north of Melbourne and running the blacktop for a final half an hour to hit the formidable Strathbogie Ranges. And as always, I've brought a few mates along with me.
We're out here on this beautiful day out in the Strathbogies on another Life Off-Road trip. Keen as to get into it.
Michael, great to have you back for another trip.
Yeah, looking forward to it, Simon. Beautiful day and beautiful countryside.
Jay, you got a bit of a look at the tracks up here. What can we expect?
Definitely some steep sections and rocky tracks. It's going to be a very exciting day indeed.
We took a right-hand turn shortcut down not an overly difficult piece of track. I think that it would be pretty difficult in the wet. The road was actually quite steep and we couldn't get the GU into low range. Called someone up on the radio and just let them know the trouble we were having. For most of us that are familiar with four-wheel driving, low range is pretty critical. It's almost as critical as having four wheels on your car.
So the old patrol's having a little bit of trouble getting into low range. The boot on the selector is torn right through. There's a fair bit of mud and crud inside. There should be a spring-loaded section in there, but we can't quite activate it.
Simon's got a bit of experience with this and knew there was a way you might be able to take the boot off and take the gate off that shifts into the low range.
Right, Tim, have a crack at that. Ho-ho!
And was able to remove this gate and then low range was selected.
Next up, we're scaling Mount Separation. It's a challenge on its own, but I'm silly enough to be towing. And in the excitement of fixing Tim's low-range problems, I may have just forgotten to engage my centre diff lock.
Does anybody want to come and have a look at the rock?
Multiple tracks up here, none of them look that good in the scheme of things. They're all a bit off camber, over big rocks.
What do you reckon, Tim? The caravan will be okay up here?
Look, we get it to the top.
Someone was kind of teasing us, telling us this is going to be a special challenge track for later in the trip.
Well, James, I promise you some rock. What do you reckon?
Pretty rocky.
Definitely rock. Tim?
Hey, I like it. We're not made of scissors.
Let's get back in the vehicles. Let's get them up the easy route. Get on top for a bit of look at the scenery. Have some lunch. We've got some tracks in store for you this afternoon. Let's go and do it.
This is not the natural environment for the Iveco to be in. And then telling a camper trailer, that's making life a bit hard for yourself.
Mount Separation is a really interesting place because the whole thing is one massive rock. It looks like it'd be really interesting to drive on. Heaps of traction, pretty gnarly and grippy in sections, but also has some obstacles thrown in around the place.
As we got to the top, just as you're sort of cresting over it, because you can't really see it, it was beautiful. It was such a reward.
We find and plan a lot of these trips using the New Tracks app. And thanks to a recent update, that's even easier now.
In the New Tracks app, we maintain an extensive trail database of thousands of trails across all over Australia. Probably the most exciting recent feature that we've already released is CarPlay compatibility. You can now connect to CarPlay, you can see the New Tracks map displayed directly in car head unit. It is all just there, neat, in the one package. Best place to find information on the New Tracks app is on our website, which is newtracks.com.
We got to the top of Mount Separation and the views are amazing up here.
As we were just taking it all in, Simon decided he wanted to show us where the next bit of a challenge track was for later in the trip, and he started pointing off the mountain.
You're really almost like peering over the edge and saying, that's not drivable surely, but there is a track down there that he's taken the Iveco down before and come up.
It looked like it was going to be a tricky one. We walked down to have a bit of a look at it, and yeah, it was steep. Never seen this place before.
I don't know if it'll test the cars, probably test the drivers. Be a bit scared. I'm a bit scared.
Tomorrow was sounding like a pretty exciting day, but I had no idea what would be in store for this afternoon.
Did actually think about camping up here, but it was blowing a gale, so we thought we'd leave the caravan here and go do tracks for the day.
On our way to go maybe have some lunch, which I'm pretty excited about, because I'm feeling a little bit peckish.
Put the rear locker on, helps if you lift a rear wheel, help to keep the bull. That was rough.
Yeah. That was a bit bloody violent, wasn't it? It's actually a bit more technical than you would think at first glance. Well, that's a good bit of bloody fun, isn't it? Oh, what a lovely little spot for a spot of tea.
At this point, we got to witness James from New Tracks making a coffee.
Step 1. Step 2.
Up until this point, I actually thought making a coffee was a pretty straightforward process.
Oh, so step 3 is drop all the filters on the ground. Now, I've put the coffee into the jet boiler, which is wrong. So disregard that step.
But watching James do it the proper and correct way,
Step 25, step 55.
I realised there is 60 steps in making a coffee.
Step 60 is you take that off. It's very hot, so I mean, if we just wait, we'll wait. Just cut this.
From where we had lunch, we turned around and then ahead of us was some rocky steps.
It's funny with rocks, they look nasty as you drive up to them, but 37's going to walk all over it. Fun little section. Let's see how the others go.
Let's see what we can do.
It is one of those obstacles that requires a little bit of finesse, a little bit of class, just to class it up a little bit. Like, we're not all toothless bogans.
Not massive rocky steps, but certainly quite an exposed rock. Had to pick a few lines. It was quite wide, so you could sort of just take wherever you fancy to a degree.
With low range working in the GU, front and rear lockers and the tyre pressure's low, first gear, we just walked it up.
Come on, Big D-Max. You got this, girl. Walks it, absolutely walks it.
Let's go, let's go!
We then continue on to another track, which was a pretty gnarly downhill section.
With plenty of rocks keeping us honest in the Strathbogies, one of our crew was lucky that they'd added some extra protection before coming along for this trip.
We've been developing a whole new range of bash plates for most modern vehicles. They are engineered out of aluminium, which reduces weight greatly whilst retaining the same strength as traditional steel bash plates. These things have taken an absolute beating over our time here in the Strathbogies. I've dropped and scraped these things over all sorts of rocks and obstacles, and they definitely are standing up for the task. If you'd like to know more information, head over to our website at roadsafe.com.au or visit your local roadsafe stockist.
With the tracks we've got planned, I reckon everybody wished they had a bit more underbody protection on their own rig.
Boys, I feel pretty refreshed after that cup of joe. I am sparked up. I am very caffeinated.
We then came across this pretty gnarly little section of track, so we all got out on foot and decided we'd go check it out.
Nice hill, we need some cars.
We did the sensible thing and decided to send the heaviest vehicle and Simon through first.
All right, this one's a little bit tricky. Really nasty placed rock just near the exit. We're going to see if we can actually climb up it.
Simon made it around the first part relatively easy.
Oh, yeah!
But as he got into that second part, the sand just collapsed underneath him and sucked him in.
Beach stairs, bro!
Simon had buried his whole rear left wheel into this rut and we really needed the recovery gear.
Fortunately, on the side of the rack, which now was at a convenient height, it was just right, there's a spade. We dug away the bank a little bit to get this door open to get some recovery gear out of it.
Did you get that on camera?
It wasn't going to be an overly complicated winch, just a short winch to the tree.
Have you got enough to wrap it around the tree?
Winching!
Geez, the winch worked hard trying to get him up. It was a really deep, deep rut.
After a quick winch, he was out, and then it was all our turn to try and get up this hill.
Yeah, nah, because I'm only a little boy.
On the same obstacle, it was my turn. I think I took a more conservative line.
Get up it, sausage boy!
James from New Tracks gave it a crack. He got to the side, sort of skirted the rut pretty well with plenty of momentum and made it through unscathed.
I'm going to try and do the same line. We'll see what happens. I thought I'd try a little bit more momentum than probably is ideal.
He, from the very bottom to the very top, didn't let off the throttle, and when in doubt, throttle it out, and that's what he did.
Holy hell!
And then the Ultimate Mountain guys came up and they decided to just throw the rule book of forward driving out the window. They decided to take a line that I just would never take because it seemed like it would be really difficult to pull it off. That being said, they chose this line that didn't get them into any trouble and actually looked pretty awesome.
Simon said it's going to be a bit of a difficult trip, so we've brought Doug, but we've changed the tyres, we've changed the gearing, so the speedo isn't accurate. This is the wireless OBD2 speedometer. You plug the OBD2 dongle into the OBD2 port, you put the display unit on the dash, it will power itself by the solar panel in the housing. Not only will it tell you your speed in real time, it'll tell you your engine coolant temperatures as well as battery voltage. For more information, you can check them out on our website, ultimate9.co.
Alrighty, here we go. Unsure of how this rut really sort of looked and not wanting to slip into that hole, I decided to go a little bit harder than I think I needed to. I think this might involve a little bit of noise. Maybe.
He just buried his foot into the throttle and flew up relatively easy.
The two least capable cars made it look as easy as anything else, and the very capable cars struggled. See?
Something about this modern technology.
After we all successfully got to the top of this track, we just decided to all flex down it and have a little bit of fun on the way down.
That'll be the tray. It's amazing how one little rock can make such a difference on a track. That right there at the top of this climb is an attitude adjuster for sure. It's definitely going to challenge us.
It's sort of interesting as we come across the bit where the rock was exposed, you couldn't really see it and you didn't want to drop into that rut.
So a bit of a wheel lift. We then continued to proceed to do the track that we did in reverse going uphill, which was a lot gnarlier than we expected. I can see the roof of the Iveco.
Thank goodness it was dry, because in the wet, that would have been a really gnarly climb. I don't think we would have got out of there without at least a couple of winches.
I'm going to try and straddle the ruts, I think, because they're quite decently deep. Let's see how we go.
Simon then wanted to show us this cool little creek crossing he had found.
As we made our way down this descent, everyone was going pretty well to the very final section.
So we were bunched up and I was following Simon slowly down this track, and a bit too slowly as it turned out because I wasn't sure what was there. I kept going and it just went bonk and stopped and bellied out.
I'm temporarily challenged by the terrain at the moment. I'm stuck.
Do you need a little push?
I just put it out. Didn't quite take enough momentum since we were going. You can see the daylight under the fire there.
Poor Michael's got himself stuck just at the exit for that last downhill section. We'll just reverse up, hook up the rear winch and pull him clear. Clear! Winching!
Quick little winch and he was out of the way, and then everyone else was able to sort of give it a little punch just at the last second just to get over that hump.
We then continued on to the creek crossing.
I could see this old disused part of the track that was overgrown and no one's driven it in a long time.
I think we all looked at it and said, that's just not drivable.
Well, it could only be described as something you should not drive up.
we pulled up at this creek.
On the other side was a couple of options, and one of them almost looked like a Cape York type thing. That's at least a metre of vertical bank.
What could only be described as something you should not drive up. Right, let's be honest.
I think we all looked at it and said, that's just not drivable. Simon being Simon thought he'd give it a go anyway, so.
Does somebody want the gloves now? All right, guys, a little bit of a climb here. There's a nasty step up. I don't even think I'll get the nose up.
He's obviously pretty fearless where he takes that Iveco. Gave it a couple of really, really good tries.
James, can you pull the tread boards off the side and throw them in the holes?
What?
Firmly planted them in the ground, and he did just a full send.
Second gear.
And they were at the full flex with a 5-tonne car on them. Stayed in one piece, they didn't crack, they bent a lot, but they spring back into shape.
But I think the wheelbase and the weight of the Iveco just wasn't working for him today.
We'll winch it. Woo.
Next up, it was myself and Michael's turn to get through the creek crossing.
So this creek crossing looked quite innocent. It did have some rocks in it, and some were bigger than other rocks. So I was going to go up the right, which was eroded, but it had some ruts you could straddle. Well, I couldn't even get there.
So they took a chicken track out, but I wouldn't say it's the chicken track either. That was problematic. There were a lot of big rocks, really entertaining for anyone observing and not driving.
Just missed the best line and he got hung up on a rock.
You're really going to try and bump it over that to continue across it. Just send it. Just full send.
We had to do quite a bit of track building to get him out of there.
Our tray on the back, I've snagged the mudguard a couple of times on it, so I'm glad that it's a shorter tray than we typically put on a dual cab. It's a 1500 long alloy tray option we have for four-wheel driving. We've sacrificed some load carrying capacity, but it means I've got shorter overhang, so I haven't managed to snag the back of the tray.
I think you've made the right choice, reducing the overhang for this trip, but also reducing the weight.
Good figure he went first, because then I knew exactly what line I had to take and what obstacles to avoid.
Yeah, it's driving. All natural.
Hey, there you
go. It came my turn, and I thought to myself, when in Rome, do as the Romans. I was going to have a crack at this wall, knowing full well that I was going to have to winch. And I employed my time-old strategy, proven strategy, flick the lockers on, and just plant it. Got the front end up the first time, but the back end was struggling to get up.
I reckon I can get it.
After a few goes, I realised it's not going to happen. Let's just get the winch out. And Simon, he looked me dead in the eyes and he said, James, just give it one more go.
You right there? Because I'm...
Almost took out one of the camera guys, almost hit a tree on the way out. He finally got up.
That's some flexing. Yeah, nice driving.
I snuck a little bit more air out of the back tyres down to 10 psi. It was time for the patrols to really show them what's up.
You'd almost think that he left his winch at home the way he was driving.
I felt a little bit bad. Doug copped a bit of a beating, but Doug likes it rough.
But a bit more right foot and less weight than the Iveco's got, and you can do amazing things if you don't sort of have much mechanical sympathy. But anyway, Patrol's renowned for being robust enough to be able to handle that sort of stuff without busting.
Now guys, I don't care what you say, this is the difference between IFS and solid axle. Patrol CVs, that is just crazy.
So here I'm thinking, it's time to pack up, head back. Someone tells me there's one last track.
You don't do another track after 4 o'clock, everyone knows that. I mean, it's barely a track.
Little did I know, that was the easy part.